Guam Unplugged. Let's go. All right.
I want to go there.
So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited for this virtual travel series, Art Across America. We will be traveling to different states or U.S. territories every other week and learning about local arts and culture. We're starting today with Guam, introduced to you by BG Gallery and SOYYO Magazine. My name is Estefania Ochoa, and I'm currently based in Los Angeles and am an art consultant for BG Gallery with a focus on working with new collectors and entrepreneurs. Here at BG, we specialize with accomplished artists who have crossed traditionally continuous art ideologies. Our aim is to bring authentic art back to the forefront of contemporary art scene. And I'm also the founder of SOYYO Magazine, an arts and culture magazine, which provides a platform for diverse creators to share their stories while focusing on sustainable approaches to selling art. As many of you know, SOYYO means I am me in Spanish. Our mantra is everything I say after I am, I become. So to start it off, I would like to ask each and every one of you to complete the phrase I am. So starting with Judy Flores.
Hello, I am an artist, a folklorist, and a historian. And I will always be an artist. I will always be a folklorist. I will always be a historian. And that is the way I have lived my life for ever since.
Wonderful. Sandy, take it away.
I love this opportunity. And I love that you say, when we say it, then we become it. I love that. So I think I'm a storyteller, a conduit. I've had a career in business, but I keep coming back to cultural endeavors as a journalist, as you mentioned, and as an organizer of cultural education opportunities, especially in San Diego. Yeah, I just love, I'm a fan of the Chamorro culture, and I just love to do what I can to promote it and bring it to as many people as I can.
Ron?
I am. When I grow up, I want to become an artist. But right now, I am an artist, archivist. I document a lot of our cultural arts. From the traditional canoe building, sailing techniques, and things like that. I'm an artist. I paint. The past 5 years, I've been doing 3D puzzles with using our icons, representing all the icons of our island, from the animals to the fish to the canoes and the carabao carts and things like that. Anything 3D just fascinates me, and I've got the equipment to produce these things. So whatever the mind is thinking about, that's what I pursue.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
First, I am a son of the beautiful island of Guam. I am blessed to have a wonderful family and support on this island. I am a storyteller more than anything, and I tell those stories through dance and performing arts. And I think mostly I strive to be an example of inspiration and possibility for our Chamorro culture and people through God's amazing grace.
Wow, you guys are all so You guys are all so rich in your culture. It's a great pleasure to have you, and I'm so honored to be able to sit here with you and have a conversation, really. The reason that we were all connected was thanks to Judy and Sandy. I'm curious, how is it that you guys all met?
We have time.
We barbecue a lot.
Well, I go way back with Judy.
Are you related to something? You had the same.
Yeah.
I'm proud to say that Sandy is my daughter, and I'd like to Ron and I have gone back for so long. When I first worked for the arts agency CAHA, I think we went back before then, but we really became involved in a lot of projects through CAHA. And one of the most enduring and important projects I think we've worked on and continue to do in our separate ways now is documentation of our masters and promoting our masters. So that's and Ron's, I have to say, Ron's just a sweetheart. He's an artist. Anything I want, he's there. And I really appreciate that about Ron. I mean, if I need something, graphics or just some advice, I go to Ron, and we've got a lot of stories.
We'll find a solution to get it done.
Yeah, and then Vince, when I was working for the Gefpago Cultural Village, which I helped found in 1991. In 2000, I came back from earning my PhD and became the director, wrote a lot of grants, was awarded a lot of grants from the federal government to promote our culture through this cultural village. And Vince was a new teacher up the hill at Inarohan Middle School. And he started asking if he could bring his students down and immerse them in the cultural activities down there. And the more we worked together, the more I realized I need this guy on my team. So I found the money, and he became my events director, my program director at Gefpago. So we went on from there. Am I missing anybody?
If I could elaborate a little bit on Auntie Judy. Yeah, it was true that that we met that way, and it was an email. And I've always first admired her work, and I've always felt connected to her work. She doesn't know that I actually attended several of her workshops before, but I was so afraid to introduce myself to her, and I was this kind of young newbie, kind of trying to explore what this Chamorro identity that I wanted to share with everyone. And so I emailed her, and I think it was email. Yeah, it had to be email. So we walked down. So we connected that way, and then I would bring my kids from up the hill from my school, and we'd walk down the hill to attend classes. Sometimes we get caught in the rain trying to get back up. But she really just since then she's really become a mentor of mine and an inspiration, and has opened up more doors than we have enough time to talk about. But since then, she's been just an amazing mentor and inspiration that continues to support what we do in our community.
I love that you brought up the idea of identity, because when I first spoke with Judy and Sandy, actually, I still haven't finished your thesis, Judy. It's about almost 200 pages long, but I loved reading it, because it definitely resonates with me, and I'm sure it resonates with a lot of people. And Vince, you bring up a beautiful point in regards to discovering your identity and wanting to tap into your Chamorro culture. and Guam identity. So I'm curious to hear all of your perspectives in regards to how you've been able to identify with your culture in Guam and your Chamorro, either heritage or Judy, for example, you're a transplant, but you've been able to immerse yourself so well, learning the language, bringing the culture together, bringing attention to the culture even outside of Guam. So if you'd like to take it away, I'd love to hear your perspective as well.
Yes, I was a transplant. I was born in Denver, Colorado, and my mother's family were pioneers over the mountains in southwestern Colorado, down near the Four Corners, from a little town called Norwood or Red Vale. And we never heard of Guam, but my father was a teacher, and he had wanderlust, but on a teacher's salary, you just can't afford to travel. So he saw this little advertisement in a teacher's magazine asking for teachers to come on contract to Guam for a 2-year contract. So he started looking up Guam and he applied and he was accepted. And in 1957, when we went, the government of Guam was hiring teachers from the States on contract in order to, I guess, indoctrinate our native children to speak English and all that kind of good stuff, you know. But we came there. I'm one of 4 siblings. So we were put in this lovely little village of Inarajan. And I thank God for whatever put us in this village, because it determined the course of my life. It was in the southern rural south of Guam, which still had a lot of traditional culture, while the textbooks were saying Chamorro culture is dead and there are no more Chamorros left. I grew up in this very vibrant culture that had was very different from where I came in Colorado. So I knew that there had to be a culture, and that's what started my journey. So where do you want me to go from here, or shall we have somebody?
Well, Vince, you're also, well, actually, let's go with Sandy too, because were you born in Guam since?
Yes, I was born on Guam, and in the little village of Inarajan, which is one of the most local kind of places. You are kind of out of the way, and I'm so grateful for that. It's the same village that both my mother and my father grew up in, just down the road from where Vince is. You know, I think this period of I feel fortunate to have grown up in this period, because I've seen the concept of identity grow up and blossom in this time. This panel can tell you better than me some great stories about this, but basically we went from a community that was, you know, brought into the American culture and very much wanted to take advantage of those opportunities, to realizing that they had something very precious they didn't want to lose at the same time. And then more and more opportunities have come up, and the world has kind of come together in promoting the value of indigenous culture. And it's all kind of come together to where we are today, where there's such a great appreciation and a great promotion of our culture among the younger generations today. And I'm so grateful to have seen that, and to have documented it how I can, and help how I can, because it's so important, and it's such a pivotal point
And you, like Vince, are part of the Chamorro like dance part of your culture as well. Can you tell us a little bit more, Vince, about how you got involved and started with dance, and how you were able to tap into that, being a part of this American Chamorro family, and really tapping into more of your roots as you got a little older?
Well, yeah, I am from the village of Maleso, and which is the southern part of the island. And I was born and raised here. Grew up with a great extended family. Grew up with the rich culture and cultural practices. But of course, I was in the same generation of Sandy, where our parents wanted us to ensure that we take advantage of all that the United States and the American dream, whatever that meant to them, was. And so I went to college in the States, and that was the beginning of my awareness, because before I left to college, I wanted to get away from the island. Like, I wanted to kind of get sold into that American dream. I wanted to do the white water rafting. I wanted to do the snowboarding. I wanted to do all those things that we would see on TV and the movies. And when I got there, I was determined to fit in, and I was determined to be one of them, one of those, whatever that Americanness that we needed to be. And I started getting involved in a fraternity, you know, all the things, all the bucket lists that as a teenager of my time wanted to do. The more I started getting involved in these activities and these opportunities, the more I started feeling disconnected to my culture, and more I wanted to figure out how to reconnect, which was very interesting, because it wasn't this epiphany. It was like the further immersed I wanted to be in the American opportunities in Colorado, which is very ironic that Judy is from, or serendipitous that Judy is from Colorado, but I was the only Chamorro in my school, and the more I wanted to be away from it, the more I felt I needed to connect to it, and so being Chamorro, it was very hard for me to identify with anybody, and as far as my culture is concerned. And so I was grateful that I had extended family that was close by, and that every weekend I was able to go there and say all the Chamorro slangs, and to be and eat the Chamorro food, and feel some sort of home. Of course, you know, we get homesick, and then by the time I finished, I felt a deep and abiding concern for my generation about our Chamorro culture, and how are we connecting it, and how are we preserving and perpetuating our culture, or more especially, how is this translating to the kids? If I felt disconnected, how does our kids feel? So I feel, and where are they going to go? So I came back to Guam, not knowing exactly what I wanted to do. I knew I had a passion to do something for our culture. I feel like I was meant to do some sort of service. I've been in service for a very long time, from being involved in student activities in high school, to helping at the church, to volunteering at the village. I mean, and so I knew that I was meant to do some sort of service. But at the time, there was not any window of opportunity as far as occupation was concerned, to do anything in the Chamorro culture. So I just started dabbling into different things, and then God opened up the opportunity to teach us at Inarajan Middle School, and I never ever thought that Chamorro dance was something that I planned to as far as my future. I didn't know anything. I didn't know what my plan was. I knew I wanted to get involved in Chamorro culture. I had a passion for it, and I needed to reconnect myself to it, and as well as reconnect those around me. And then it was through dance that I was able to find that opportunity. And since I stumbled across it in 2000, it has led me to where I am today. And I'm truly, truly grateful for this journey.
That's wonderful. We will come back to that. I just want to give Ron a moment too to discuss his maybe either battle or internal feeling of his identity with Chamorro culture. From my understanding, you you were a son of a military family, so you had to travel to different parts of the world. So what was that for you?
That that was the best experience we had. My dad was stationed in Germany in 63, 64. So I left the island when I was 10 years old. And every 3 years you get transferred to another station. And so we lived in Ramstein, and which is still open today. And, you know, experiencing all the different cultures, and then, you know, all the photos that you see in the history books, when you see the castles and the Rhine River in real life, it's just like, oh, this doesn't compare. And then the other opportunity was coming back to Guam during the Vietnam War. Dad was stationed in Vietnam for 2 years. I lived in Saipan with my mom's family. And then Dad had the opportunity to get stationed in Japan or Spain. So we were so close to Japan, so let's go to Spain. So in sophomore years, we moved to Spain, and that's where, you know, seeing Madrid and the Prado Museum, I just got really involved in the art, and then the culture too, experiencing the cultures of Germany, Spain, England, Turkey, you know, being able to travel around Europe because everything was within driving distance then. And I graduated in Spain, won an art scholarship. So I took advantage of that and went to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. So I was the first artist to graduate in the family to graduate there. And then 6 years later, my younger brother, Rick, who's an art professor at the University of Guam, also graduated from the Art Institute. When I came back to Guam in '83, I started the ad agency. And I was documenting everything, photographing all our cultural events, because I love painting too. And that's how I got involved with Judy. In '94, I shut down the agency and took a 3-year sabbatical documenting our master folk artists. And that's how that series started, because Judy was responsible for seeking and finding who our master folk artists were, you know, the master carvers, the master weavers, all the traditional arts and things like that, net making, talajero. So that 3 years, I shut down the agency and went every day documenting one of our masters, photographing them, recording them, videotaping them. And then we came up with a series of posters representing each one. And that's where the first series of 24 masters. And I was glad to be able to be a part of that then, because of the 24, I think there are maybe 3 survivors. Yeah, so a lot have passed since. But the neat thing about that was, while we were documenting them, they had apprentices. So these apprentices are now, I would consider, masters, because they're carrying on the tradition, they're keeping it alive. And so that was my involvement with the traditional arts. Those posters are still, you can still see them in all the government offices and things like that. And you know, doing the master series, and then because Vince is a master of dance. Judy and I had the opportunity to travel for 6 weeks. Was it Judy, with Tao Tano, because they were invited to the Salon Festival in Belgium. And so they always called me to say, do you want to document this event? You know, come along and photograph it. And this is like, so I think Mary and I, we spent 3 weeks, the first 3 weeks in Belgium, France. And then we went to Holland. And that's where Judy and John came in and replaced us after our 3rd week. So I got to get back to work. You know, so Judy came and got the last 2 weeks in Amsterdam, correct? And
yeah.
Now since then, I think Vince has gone to the Salon Festival, which is really neat because it's like the best dance troupes of all the in Europe that are invited to this event. And then you see this little group from Guam, you know, and their skirts and you know, barefoot and dancing and everything like that. And I said, what, do you get paid to do this? And they said, No, we don't get paid. This is a hobby. Really? Because these professional dance troupes from Russia, Germany, or, these are paid professionals to go and perform, and to see us doing that. It's just like, yeah, no, this is for fun. So that we've just had so many great experiences watching the expatriates come in from the States, that were born and raised in the States, and then come to Guam, and they're just absorbing all this cultural stuff, it's just like the food, the dance, the arts. And then they said, why aren't you excited about it? And I said, because we're living it, and I just love it when they're just absorbing all this stuff and then promoting it and then spreading it and then going back and sharing it some more. And then a lot of times they end up staying here, staying home. They don't go back to the States. Guam is home. But because we're living it, everything's common.
It's a part of your everyday life. It's a living culture, right?
Correct.
So you mentioned that there's a style in terms of like what you wear and even the dance. Can either you or Vince or Sandy emphasize on that a little bit more about what Chamorro dance is?
I guess, yeah. Sandy's pointing at me, so I guess I'll speak on that. Chamorro dance is an expression, it's a cultural expression of our culture told through dance. It can be utilitarian, it can be ceremonial, it can be spiritual, and it can also be a reflection of contemporary times, and also a way to tell our history. So we can do dances that talk about pre-colonial times. We can talk about our Spanish era and some of the fun stuff and some of the things that happened during the Spanish era. We can talk about the Spanish Chamorro War. We can talk about a fiesta or a gathering, and we can even talk about the Catholic Church. I mean, Chamorro dance is really an expression of our Chamorro culture. There are many different ways in which we do that. We are trying to find some sort of commonality, some sort of unified movement, which we are exploring these last few days in depth. But Chamorro dance is definitely an expression of our Chamorro identity.
Do you want to elaborate on that?
I'm sorry. I just love the way with Vince's group, if you don't see them for a couple months performing, and then you watch them perform, it's just like, oh my gosh, the choreography, the movements, the song, the music, it's just so beautiful. It's just like, makes you want to cry. And Sina is my favorite one, and that makes me cry every time.
Yeah, thank you. Because I just have a crazy head, I think, and I can't sleep. Julie knows this, that is just all in my head, and I need an outlet, and I need to muta or vomit it all out to the students and to the world, right? All my ideas. So how would you like me to elaborate, like as far as like the style, or I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I love that you tapped into kind of like a modern fusion of correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm really just asking out of curiosity. So you talk about the influences of storytelling as the Spaniards coming in, kind of colonializing parts of Guam, and even the religion of the Catholic religion coming in as well to influence Guam. From my understanding, I mean, the Mariana Islands have their own very indigenous culture as well. So it's kind of like I would say like a fusion of like the old to what's becoming now, and sharing that story. So I guess my curiosity is more so like, has it become a fusion, or are you still incorporating like old styles, or are you like, I don't know. Can you elaborate?
It's definitely a fusion of many influences and also creative expressions. Certain individuals, certain dance instructors, or they may not want to call themselves as dance instructors. They may want to just call themselves a dancer, whatever it is that they would like to identify themselves as. Do have different influences either throughout the Pacific. I myself have influences throughout the world because when I watch other cultures and how they evolve their dance expressions, it allows me and gives me permission to kind of explore how I can expand my presentations. I think that for me as an artist, I always break down the whys. Why am I doing this? Why does it matter to me? Why does it matter to the students and dancers and musicians that's in my world? And why does it matter to the world? And once I kind of break those things down a little bit, of course it goes a million miles per hour in my head. But once I get to that why, then I know how to create the next step. So it can be a why can be, okay, you know, I just got upset because there was this court hearing that happened and between two people, and I wanted to address that, and then I will be able to tell that story. Or it can be as simple as I saw Auntie Judy at mass, and she put her hand on the saint and she made a prayer in the saint, and I thought, that was maybe an inspiration for me to recall my mom's term of endearment to Santa Maria, and then I'll create a dance about that. But it really depends on the perspective of the artist and of the dance director or choreographer, or what we would call here in Guam, which is instructor of dance, and their influences and how they want to move Chamorro dance. There is a standard that's the first master of Chamorro dance, Frank Probon, put out, and many of the groups here are following those standards, including myself. But there are still other schools of thoughts, like there's a master chanter who doesn't really see himself as a performer, but he is a master chanter, and his name is Master Leonard Uriarte, and his ideas what I understand of his philosophy is that he wants to recreate or present what was done prior to colonial history. So he does that. And then you have other mediums or other artists that just want to do it just to entertain, just to have fun, just to dance in its most surface level. But if you talk, it definitely is a fusion of Pacific culture and any influences that the dance instructor and or the choreographer or dancer would like to include in their presentation.
Sandy, do you want to elaborate on that? I know that you've been bringing Chamorro dance to the States as well.
First, let me say that I'm not a dancer, although I participated for a time in San Diego. My role, like I said before, has always been a connector and a storyteller. So Vince and I met because when I moved to San Diego about 10 years ago, as part of, San Diego has the largest diaspora, which is the largest, number of people that are from the islands and have spread out. San Diego is a concentration of Chamorros there. And I became part of that community about 10 years ago. And at that point, they weren't engaging the young people as much as they want to. There was concern about that. At the same time, they held an annual festival. And because I knew Vince, and like Ron mentioned, Vince takes his group traveling all over the world, we arranged for him to stop and be a part of this festival. And he, offered to do these free workshops for whoever wanted to come. Well, first day, we had 35, 40 kids show up, kids that we hadn't seen, in our community, just come out. It was just this hunger for them to participate in the culture. And it was that impetus that, a few of us in the community said, well, we obviously have kids that need this, want this. It's such a healthy, wonderful activity for them. Let's put this together. So that was my role, to put it together with, Vince is the impetus. Vince did a lot of guiding. I connected with one of the few dance instructors who lives in the US, Heidi Kanga, who, and we formed this partnership where she'd come down every week and teach our kids. And gosh, it's been about 7 years now. You know, she and I started off as the leaders, and we've passed on. She has an apprentice. I passed on, you know, the leadership for the administrative part of it. And we have this group, and I purposely wore this shirt, and I wanted to share what it is and what it means, because it right, art tells a story. So this is the shirt that we wear, one of the designs that we wear as a dance group. And it's very purposeful. This is the slingstone shape, which is, you know, it's an ancient artifact that we still find on the beach sometimes today. And it's, you know, it's a stone that was used, that was slung for hunting and sport and things like that. And that's, you know, an indigenous piece. So we incorporated that. This is a marmar, which brings in our larger Micronesian culture that is especially prevalent on the Northern Mariana Islands. We wanted to make sure that it wasn't just Guam that was represented, it was our Northern Marianas. So we added the beautiful marmar. And then the name of the group, Uno Hit, Vince helped, you know, Vince is very much responsible for this as well, but Uno Hit means we are one. So it was a way to say, you know, not only are our islands one, but we are one with our diaspora, with this spread of people that have spread out. And dance was a way to share a common understanding of the culture, you know, common movement, common language, time together. So that was just a beautiful opportunity that I had there, and it opened my eyes to the power of, you know, art and dance in our identity. And now I'm hooked. I did a lot of documenting of that in the US, and now I'm back on Guam. So I look forward to the opportunities to help here as well. But yeah, that's the story of how I really got immersed into promoting the culture.
If I can add to Sandy's story about the word unuhit, when we decided to go out again for the Chamorro or the Chelu festival, the Chamorro festival, Sandy and I were talking about how do we use and take advantage of this opportunity, not just about a festival, but to create dialogue and conversation and to empower our Chamorro people. So we wanted to bring in other practitioners, other scholars, other people living in the United States that would like to sit and talk and share what they're doing in the States regarding Chamorro culture. So we decided to call that conference Unuhit, and it was the Unuhit conference. And then from there, Unuhit then continued on with the dance. But it was a wonderful moment for me because it brought in people from Guam. It brought in people from that's living on Guam currently, and then it brought in many other people that were doing work in Chamorro culture throughout the United States. And that was just for me a very wonderful, meaningful moment.
That's wonderful. Thank you guys so much for sharing that. Judy, you were talking about Kaha, which is something that Ron is a part of. Can you guys tell me more about that? I don't know what it stands for off the top of my head.
Well, Kaha is it's the acronym. It stands for the Council on the Arts and Humanities Agency. And Kaha in the Chamorro language means a box. More specifically, a treasure box. So we were founded. Kaha was founded as an agency of the government in oh, help me here, Ron. 1980. 72. It started
at the Insular Arts Council, right?
Yeah, it started as the Insular Arts Council, and that was in the 70s.
Correct.
And then, ironically, I had been teaching for 10 years, and a senator asked me to, Senator Casper Bauer in 1981, kept hinting that she met with me several times, and I couldn't pick up on her hint. And it turned out she wanted me to work for her and help create the legislation for CAHA, for the Arts Council. So I worked for her for a year, and that opened my eyes. I totally respect our Senate, our legislative members, because they work. They are 24/7, and they, so anyway, that was an eye opener for me. I wrote the legislation, then I went back to. That's about the time that I started working on opening a culture village, Gefpago. But I think that was in 1989, I think, the legislation. I think it was earlier. I'm not very good at.
Yeah, it was back in the 80s.
It was back in the
83.
Yes. 83. Yeah. So anyway, it's a relatively new government organization, but we've and a very small staff, but very passionate people. I've worked there. I worked there when it first started, as I was the first folk arts coordinator. I started in 1985. So yeah, I think it was founded in 1982. So I worked there for 10 years, and as that was the time that Ron and I collaborated on the master's program, because that was one of my job descriptions, was to create, to identify the arts and artists of Guam, and to document them and to promote them. So I had a wonderful job. I mean, it was so fulfilling to go out into the field a lot and just spend an afternoon with a master, and they became friends. That they just shared their lives and shared their, of course, you always share a meal, so yeah. And we traveled together. We did a lot of promotion. That was the time when we did some fairs in the States, and we took these manamko, which are the elders, who had been identified as the masters. We took them with us, and they shared their singing and their weaving and the various arts that we were celebrating. We went to Long Beach. We went to Washington State. We did several years of this. And then they also went with us to the first FESPAC that Guam officially attended as a government agency. And that was in 1988 in Townsville, Australia. So
you took Tani Lena, Master Weaver, correct? Tani
Yeah.
Lena went there. Oh, yeah.
And it was so much fun traveling, on the bus. We get on the bus and we go to the venue that we're supposed to be on. And I'm sitting with these wonderfully creative 4 or 5 ladies who are experts in a call and response type singing called Cantan Chamorita. And even ancient Chamorro, in ancient documents of ancient Chamorro society talk about this poetic art form that Chamorros mastered. It was a form of debate, and it could be in song and it could be in poetry. But it was so wonderful to see that tradition had gone down through these ladies, and they could pick up a line, and they could take it and just joke with it and make it rhyme and just keep us in stitches whenever we were traveling together. And I really treasure those moments. If I could put something in at this point, is I grew up in a very different era, where when we said Chamorro art or Chamorro dance, there really wasn't any. I remember in the 6th grade, my school principal decided that we were going to celebrate United Nations Day or whatever day that international celebration. So we were going to celebrate our culture with a Hawaiian hula. And this is where we were at that time in the 1950s, 60s, where we had basically just put aside our culture, and there were generations who had not even experienced Canta Chamarita or these other. There was no dance. There was no Chamorro dance before 1984 when Frank Rabone started putting together his Chamorro dance. So I grew up in a time where we danced the Spanish Batsu. It was Chamorroized. It was a little bit different, and we had our own types of particular dances that were designed by Chamorros, but it was a Batsu, and then the Sotus, which is a polka, and so what Sandy and Vince are talking about is a whole generation now who grew up with celebrating ancient Chamorro art, traditions, and dance that we had not yet rediscovered. And that's my whole thesis. So did I answer your question, or did I?
Yes, that was wonderful. That was a lot. But I want to give Ron some time as well to speak on that, because you had some involvement in Kaha as well. So I'd love to hear that.
I was with Kaha. I was the vice chair for 7 years through the Yada Blasa administration. So I served on the board, coming up with projects and things like that. And I found the projects that gave the agency the most visibility was exhibits and displays that we were able to travel around the villages and to set them up, and then to recognize artists on the island and things like that. We did a traveling tower of our masters, our traditional masters. So whenever there was an event going on where we want to promote our culture, the Kaha would set up this display, this tower with all the pictures and the write-ups on the masters. When we went to New Caledonia for the FestPac in New Caledonia, we displayed all the masters. And the comments that I found interesting about that was, this was the first time they had seen a master whose photograph was on the poster. And they associated that person with, the title. Because usually when you talk about a master folk artist, it's general. There's no one person associated with that, and I think that's what made this series successful. Was we were able to put the photograph of the master and the types of crafts that they had surrounding them.
And also curious about your journey as you were a part of an ad agency, you started your own ad agency, then became involved with Kaha, and now you're focusing on archiving art still and creating 3D art.
Yes. I document, any major event that I can document. The past 3 FestPacs I've gone to, where you got 27 countries coming together with their best artists, dancers, crafters, and things like that, and spend 2 weeks photographing and documenting it. And that's what I was doing at all of these events. 2016, we had our FestPac on Guam. And we had 3,000 visitors from 27 countries come in and perform. We had 3, I was the visual arts chair then. And so I was responsible for the 3 venues that were displaying all the artwork. And it was just so much talent coming there, coming together in one location, and the other countries, the artists involved in that, just so excited because, wow, they've come, they finally made it to Guam, and all they were hearing about Guam was Guam, because you got Melanesia, Polynesia, Micronesia, Tahiti, Fiji, New Caledonia, and then when they talk about Guam, it's like, now Guam's westernized, too westernized. So, but we finally got a chance because every time the FestPac would happen, the country would bid on who's hosting the next one, and Hawaii won the 2000. I guess the last year or this year was supposed to be Hawaii. Every 4 years that the FestPac happens, so that was canceled because of the COVID. I had the ad agency, and then we started Gallery Group, which also was running the Guam Museum. And when that opened, we were the first ones to use the Guam Museum during FestPac to open up the art gallery, and now we've got a permanent exhibit there, explaining the history of Guam. Beautiful, beautiful building, beautiful exhibit, but because of COVID, it's just like nobody's there to visit it, or to be able to go outdoors, and the social distancing. That has just been the challenge this year. But I see, it's going to take a couple of years for it to come back. Being an artist, art is the last thing that people would want to purchase during these hard times. So they're always trying to come up with something different and something available that, what else can we offer besides selling, pendants and puzzles and things like that. I've been out there just for the exposure, letting people know what's available out there. And so I've been getting these little special orders here and there, plaques, people leaving Guam, they want to give them an icon of Guam for them to take back home with them and stuff like that. But other than that, it's been very difficult. And but I'm an artist. I've got 100 other projects that keep me busy. If I'm not drawing or painting, or I'm carving or doing photography. And so there's just so many things to do here on the island, and to keep you busy. But just being able to share it with all the other our visitors and guests, and you see when you're traveling around the world and you go to the airports and you see these dinosaur puzzles, right? I said, man, we need to do that with Guam. And there was this agency, a nonprofit organization called GUMA, Guam Unique Merchandise and Art, and they invited artists to present artwork to take it to the next level. And this is where I had the opportunity, because I've just been painting all these years, but I always wanted to do the 3D puzzles. So what they did was, I did submit a business plan, take the business classes, and then come up with your business plan, and make your presentation, what type of product you're going to sell, who's your market, and things like that. And that's where Island Icons came in. So they gave me a grant to purchase a laser cutter, a laser printer. So I'm able to produce, take my little icons. Yeah, here, this one is called East Meets West. And, we have a dance group from Japan, the Guma Famagun, and they take turns every year bringing new students, college students, to Guam to experience the culture. And this is my interpretation of East Meets West.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Showing our icons and things. This is all laser cut, spray painted. I love the detail that this laser cutter can do. So I've been doing shadow boxes and then adding different types of fish to this also. Give it that more of a depth. And so trying different things. This is Sina. Mm-hmm. This is the canoe that they built, the Tasi, the traditional seafaring islands. Took 3 years to build this canoe, and in 2009 they sailed it to Rota. And this is the first canoe since the Spanish era that was built here and sailed to Rota. Took 27 hours, because they were just using the wind. And I was fortunate to be on the chase boat following them, documenting the voyage. They had a crew of 9. And so with this laser cutter, what I did was made a replica of this, which is available for purchase. So, keeping our icons, but the ones that are well known today, and then making it available to the public. And then more of my shadow boxes. The Guma Lati there, the Lati house, the Lati stones are the foundation of the house, the ancient Chamorro's homes. And they were thatched roof huts built on top of that. The Higa and the Tasi. The Tasi is the cup. And I think they did the cup so that the rats couldn't climb up into the hut, that curved part. But they're still samples on display, like the river cruise, jungle cruise. There's the Lati huts there, the Valley of the Lati. Yeah, a lot of Lati stones, and then they've got replicas of what the huts looked like back then, and they're right by the river. Beautiful place to visit.
Brent couldn't be here with us today, but he was going to elaborate a little bit more on how that's even incorporated in modern architecture as well. Yeah. So I just want to give him a little shout out because he was supposed to be a part of this. I do want to just kind of give you guys some time to talk about something that also sparked some curiosity, because we have 2 generations here of Chamorro culture. So what do you guys think is coming now from the youth that you work with, that you're kind of helping gather their or learn more about their own heritage, right? How do you see that transpiring now that you're excited about?
What with the artists, or the visual arts and the carvers, what I'm seeing is these younger artists coming in and doing the research on patterns, icons, the patterns that were on our pottery and things like that, and incorporating it into their artwork. And that's what I'm finding really neat. And then we've got younger artists that are incorporating their designs in fashion. The clothes that we're wearing now, regular shirts, not t-shirts, but clothes, shirts, button-down shirts with collars, and then they're incorporating their designs on the material. The sadis that the sadis and the wraps, they're applying their designs on the wraps that the dancers wear and things like that. Each guma has their own design. So, and I'm seeing a lot of beautiful icons and patterns from ancient artifacts that these artists are incorporating into the whatever they're doing, whether it be carving stone, bone, wood, fabric. That's what I find exciting. And so now people are asking me, it's like, oh, do you want to design? I said, no. There's some younger ones out there that they need to dig in and find themselves in their art and their style, the type of artwork. A good example is these giant murals that are going around the island, and these local artists just coming up with some, as a graphic artist and a designer, seeing their designs and seeing the icons that they use, but still, making it a part of Guam, and it's just beautiful stuff. People building these, painting these murals around the island. And every time I see one, it's just like, all right, he's going to do good when they grow up.
I think that, first, I'd like to respond to Ron about how art is, they may not want to buy anything right now, but I think in this current situation, I truly believe art is so needed. It is the balance that we are the balance of the heaviness that is happening today. I've been busier than I was prior to the pandemic, just because people are in need of relief and some sort of meditative space. And that has allowed me to be more engaged in a different way. We're just about to do Arts Across America with the Kennedy Center, and so we were in the middle of filming that. We had a huge webinar series the last couple of days with the University of Guam and Humanities Guam, and now we're looking at social media as a way to continue to keep cultural education and cultural awareness relevant and on top of the minds of our young kids. And so, and that is because because art, again, I feel is the balance of humanity. We have the heaviness of the world, we have the darkness of the world. We also have the lightness of the world, and we have the beautiful moments of the world and it's through art that I think that's what creates that space and that balance, because art is spirituality to me, and it's very much connected to spirituality. This morning I was listening to, as I was journaling, because yesterday was such a heavy conversation in our webinar, but important conversations that needed to happen. I was listening to all of the church music that I could find in YouTube, and just let it play as I was outside watching, looking at my yard and kind of meditating and just praying. And I thought, what a beautiful art form is our Tetsa, and our leader. Tetsa is a person that leads the rosary and is really responsible for having this leading the prayer on Guam. And so it was my art space. It was my space to balance all the heaviness that's happening. And so just wanted to elaborate a little bit more on Ron. And but I think that what's happening with the young kids today, I specifically talk about university students and high school students, because that's the age that I deal with. I think that there is this resurgence, or the surgence most especially, of embracing an identity and trying to navigate through this modern pop culture and finding their spaces to identify as a Chamorro person, but at the same time still move our culture forward, and still be proud of who they are. And so there are so many different expressions that are happening today, all from performance arts through visual arts, and that our young folks are really striving to reconnect to our identity. Now, the struggle they have is understanding that identity and history and culture is fluid, and it moves, and it's accepting their modern culture as it is today, not necessarily learning culture is just this thing of the past that they must be, and that looking backwards is not something that looking backwards also means moving it forward, and embracing their culture is not just a thing of the past, but it's a thing of the present. And it's about how do we, and that our kids are finding their spaces to express their identity, most especially, I think, through the arts.
Andy, Judy, do you two want to elaborate?
Let me jump in and let Judy close our session rightfully. First, oh my gosh, what an incredible panel you put together. Just, to have Ron and Judy here as such prolific artists. And not only that, but their work has, involved legislation on arts on Guam, and institutions, and, really movements. And then Vince as well, just, being one of our 3 dance masters and bringing, we haven't even talked about how much he brings our dance to the international audience. I mean, what an amazing group. I'm sorry Brent Weesey couldn't join us with architecture, but still what an amazing panel. So thank you. And then your question was, where do we see the next generation going? And I wanted to go back to what Vince talked about as art as bringing lightness and kind of a resource for all of us when things are difficult. My focus in the last 10 years has mostly been with the diaspora. So I think about those young people, and you know, what I experienced with them was a struggle with who I am and what do I turn to when things are hard. And I saw how identifying with their culture through dance was really a great resource for them. It's like, well, things are this way and these things happen to me, but I have a family and I have a story and I have a homeland and all of those wonderful things. So I just, I hope for them that their ingenuity and innovation is going to bring them a way to use their culture to help them through this. And kind of, you know, like you have, you've adjusted and you've brought the world to people through, through these webinars and on the internet. So I'm hopeful that maybe there'll be additional connections or some way that their culture gives them some respite and some comfort and maybe even some new opportunities, you know.
Thank you.
Take it away, Judy.
Well, sitting here thinking, it was very wise of you to choose these, you know, representatives of two generations, and because what we experienced in our particular generation has been so different. And I am continually impressed by our young Chamorros who are moving forward. And I see it every time I run into one of them, or I'm on Facebook, and I see them practicing their language, which is very hard because the generation, my generation, kind of dropped the ball and didn't teach our kids Chamorro. So they're having to relearn, and there are those who are very passionate, and their language will emerge. And I have to, I think the role of us, the older generation now, is to sit back and not be so critical and allow them to move forward. For example, I see, you know, I was so fortunate to come at a time where everybody spoke Chamorro, and I learned it and I was corrected, and that this is the way you do it and there's no other way. And, you know, there are dialectical changes and things like that. But my Chamorro is very different than the language that is emerging. And I have to realize that, stop being critical. You know, they are expressing themselves. Maybe they don't have an article or an adjective, or they haven't got the connecting words down, but so what? I know what they're saying, and it's very profound. So I think we need to step back and let them shape their world. I'm especially, I just came away yesterday from the webinar that Vince put together through the university, and the profound thoughts of these young people is just amazing. And the direction they're going, I think, it's inspiring, because I see them moving towards each other. I see them making attempts to mend past maybe convictions that kind of split people apart. And I see a lot of hope in this new generation. So that's where I'd like to leave it. Let them be and watch them. And of course, if they ask for my help, I'll be there.
Well said, Judy.
I always ask.
And then they ask, and then they don't take your advice.
No. I'm good.
That's okay, too.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you.
You
Thank
guys
you.
are all so wonderful. I feel I'm overwhelmed with the joy and gratitude to be able to have this time with you all. Again, like through the internet. Thank you, internet, for being able to connect us all, because it is so important that we get to know our peers, no matter where they are, because there's only so much that I think the media can really tell us about certain areas. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to speak firsthand. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And I am going to just share some resources that Sandy shared with me in regards to, if anyone's curious to learn more about Chamorro culture, you can visit the Chamorro Optimist Clubs SD.com. Chamorro Optimist Club SD.com. I'll also add it to the YouTube description page, and houseofchamorros.org. And there, you also notice Guampedia is really big as well. So it's a great way to get to know all of these individuals who had the opportunity to participate. So I'll definitely be posting those resources on both soyyomag.com and bgartdealings.com as well. Thank you guys so much.
I
hope you guys have an incredible rest of your day, and wishing you all and more.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.